This is episode 0017 of Gary's Glorious Golden Nuggets. And today we are proud to have Bradley Morley with us. Bradley is the founder of INDIGO, a online advertising firm. He has been involved in online advertising for over 2 years. He's a podcaster in his own right, having 2 podcasts under his belt. And I'm just so pleased to have you here. Welcome, Bradley.
Thanks very much for having me, Gary. I'm excited to be here.
Well, I'm excited to have you. So let me just get right down to my first question I like to ask everybody. What is the one thing you wish you had known before you began your digital online career?
Sure. This one means a lot to me, actually, because I think it's one I can vouch for. I found myself doing multiple things in the past. One thing everybody seems to get is this whole shiny object syndrome, probably the definition of that, because I just kept thinking of something to do and then not quite doing it and getting into something else. And obviously over the years, I've learned a big lesson from it. And I think the main important thing for me would just be that it's better to fail in doing things, rather than not doing things and not failing. So the whole thing about pushing your boundaries more, I think when I first started out, I was pretty scared to really put myself into something. When it got a little bit risky, I'd probably vouch for something else, a bit more of a safer option. So I didn't give it a chance to unravel and really invest some time and energy into it. So I just kept jumping from one to the other. So I think for me, the biggest thing would just be, especially if you're young, but even if you're not, just go all out on it, stick to one thing, really knuckle down, really learn about it, and try and really something that you can call as a good lesson. Even if you fail in it, then you're going to fail forward. So that would probably be my biggest thing.
Well, there's several golden nuggets in that answer so far. The big one is if you're going to fail forward, because the successful people know that they'll fail and fail and fail and fail and fail, but they just keep getting up, making the changes, learning from the lessons. The other thing that really struck out at me is that whole shiny object thing, where people can work their way almost to the point of jumping in and then just say, oh, but there's something across the street that looks even better. Let me go take a look at that.
Yeah, it's really true. It happens. I'm definitely, I can definitely say that I've done it multiple times. And also as a result, you end up trying to do too many things at once. That just has a negative effect because you end up with a bunch of average results rather than one really good one. So yeah, just fail forward and don't make the same mistake again.
And determine what your niche is. Who is it that you're talking to, or you're working with, or you're wanting to work with? It doesn't matter what your niche is. You can take the most unsavory characteristic of humanity, and you'll probably have 50 million people in that niche. So if 100%. You're actually out here doing something wonderful for people, you're probably guaranteed at least 50 million people.
Yeah. There's some crazy small niches now, and people are still impacting a lot of people, getting a big audience out of it. So yeah, for sure.
Yeah, just believe in yourself. Yeah. So you talked about failure. What's been the biggest failure so far?
Wow, where to start? I'd probably say for me, it was actually a former business that I'd done, which was very similar to what I do now with INDIGO. But it was with a business partner, and I went into this business with one of my best friends. And I think, although that can work really well for some people, I'd personally advise against it, just because, the emotional attachment that you have to that, it can, if that person's not as, invested as you are into what you're trying to build, it can have a negative effect, because if they might not necessarily put as much work in as you, or they might not be as passionate about it as you. And one thing led to another for me, and it ended up that I was doing a lot of the work and he wasn't. And I wasn't taking any money out because I was trying to build something, and he was trying to take some out. And, it ended up sour. We ended up, shutting it down, and we don't talk at all anymore. So, I think that's probably the biggest failure for me, is just leaving it too long to realize that this isn't working, until it got really bad. And I could have avoided that and took a different turn. But also just not being so emotionally attached to the situation and treating them as a friend when you are actually meant to be in business. So taking emotional decisions over business decisions was probably the biggest lesson for me, biggest failure for me.
Yeah, that's a big lesson there about the emotional decisions that can really impact life. when you have a business partner, if you have a great business partner, it really helps. And it's just like a marriage.
Yeah,
If you marry the right
100%.
person, you're going to have a great marriage and things will work out well. But
Yeah,
where people are not actually on the same path, they're not actually seeing the same road, they have different outcomes in mind, they have different
yeah,
belief patterns, you're headed for trouble. You're headed for trouble.
100%.
Now, most people who get online tend to be what I would call solo entrepreneurs.
Yeah,
They're all by themselves in the world. And what have you
yeah,
found? I find that there's community out there if you find it, and community really helps.
100%.
But when you're alone, a lot of people think, oh, I'm just anonymous. I can hide behind my website. I don't need to
Yeah.
have a relationship with people. Where's your view on that?
Yeah, I think it's very true, and probably equally something that I found myself doing as well. It can be easy to really just it's a lonely path, whatever type of business you're looking to run, whether it's online, offline, entrepreneurship in general can be lonely. So I think it is important to try and connect with as many people as possible, even if it's getting involved in Facebook groups, if it's going on other podcasts like this. You're not just looking to, you don't necessarily have to have all of this personal stuff you need to talk about. Sometimes it's just about having a conversation with a like-minded person. Networking has been key for me, and even other businesses, just trying to get yourself out there, even if they're a client to you. The amount of clients that I've got that I consider really good friends now, and that's actually helped my business thrive in a way, because then you've built a better relationship. Even that alone can do one. I think it can be easy to stick behind your computer, but you do need to push yourself out there and just try and get talking to other people, because you're going to learn a lot as well. There's stuff that others have come across that you haven't yet, and they're going to teach you that. And having mentors and things, it can be really impactful for building a business.
Any other suggestions that you would give to somebody who is wanting to pursue a career similar to this choice of being a digital online entrepreneur?
I think be as active as possible online, just putting out your work. I think a key thing, if it's specifically for something like this, would just be to really hone in on the craft, really learn your skills as a talented designer or whatever of that creative process, because people, they hire creatives for a reason, because you're more creative minded. So I think just try and do as much as possible. Actually start to reach out to businesses and be like, look, I'd love to do this piece, no cost to you, but just to show you what I'm capable of, because that gives you clarity. A lot of people appreciate that forward thinking mentality, and you could end up with a lot of jobs off the back of that. But equally, even if you don't, it gives you some content to actually share with the world, on your social. This is what I can do, this is what I'm capable of. It's going to help you a lot. And yeah, just really get yourself out there. Make sure you're active online, because there's so much noise out there. You've really got to break through it and share what's unique about you and what value you're willing to bring.
I really like that phrase you just used. There's so much noise out there, because there is.
There
A
really
lot of it
is,
is
yeah.
hype.
Yeah,
There's a lot of
it
hype
is.
out there. And the hype can be distracting, especially to people who are looking for shiny objects.
Oh, for sure. It really can. Yeah, because there is a lot of these sort of econ gurus that are quick to show. You look at their Instagram and it's full of cars, lifestyle, vacations, money, fancy things. And a lot of them don't necessarily have that. They're just doing it because they think that's the way that's going to attract people, or that's what's going to build their following. And, they're in it for the wrong reasons. And I think it's easier to spot that now, but it is equally, there is still a lot of people that get fooled by that. So I do think, yeah, there is a lot of noise. You just got to try not to pay attention to it, stay in your own lane, and make sure you're learning from these people. If you're not, then they're probably not a valuable asset to your life.
Excellent advice. I really quite like that. So what are the best resources that you found that have helped you along your way in this career path?
I think 100% I would put it down to actually this whole podcast space. When I first started a business, it was online was already around, but for me, a lot of people that I knew wasn't really making the most of this whole building an online store and advertising online, and building this whole online presence. So I was still doing a lot by making sales through DMs on Twitter and I didn't have a website. I was taking products that I was selling to my actual employment work and selling them to people that work there, and going on my lunch break and going to sell them to people down the road in the banks and stuff, because it was like these fancy ties. So I think this whole thing, resources for me was the podcast thing. I didn't quite know where to turn to really build something valuable as a business. So I thought the one way for me that I'm going to be able to get some solid advice from people that have been there and done it is to start a podcast, because everybody wants to go on a podcast, right? Like it's still that, it's a nice vibe, it's good to speak. And I think that connected me with so many people that to this day has impacted my journey, because I met certain people that become business partners and clients of mine and things like that. So I think you don't necessarily go and have to start a podcast, but being a part of communities on Facebook and groups, or there's even Slack channels now that you can get in, which there's different channels for just picking up advice from people sharing on different types of business operations or social or e-commerce or advertising. So I think just trying to listening to podcasts, that itself, there's so much value that you can pull from that across different shows that will help you. So I'd probably say, yeah, resources would be that for me personally.
I find that there's a real sense of community within the digital world.
Yeah.
And people who actually make it are very generous in trying to help anybody else to get there. They give really decent advice. And that's where I would say, folks, if somebody's offering you something and they're saying this is going to cost you $4,000, I'd look elsewhere, because there is so much good advice from respected, long-term, successful people. They don't really have much hype or flash or anything in that regard. Maybe they drive a really good car, or maybe they have a really big house or something, but you don't really get to see that. They don't really share that with you.
That's true.
But they are so generous with their time. That was the biggest surprise to me coming into the digital marketplace for myself, was the fact that people want to help you, and they want to help you succeed, because the digital marketplace does not see the world as a pie that's only one size and everybody gets a slice out of that. They just see that this pie just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And even though your slice may look smaller, you actually got more pie because the pie is so huge. And it's just amazing to me. Other people in this digital market have been the best resource I've come across. So talking about this, 3 people, 3 sources of information, what would you say were the best helps to you so far?
Like influential people sort of thing that I've found useful.
Yeah.
I'd probably say, obviously, Gary, I don't personally know him, but it's somebody that I've been following online for a long time. It's, he's shared a lot of value that's been hugely influential to me in the past. And, I've took some real value from it. I'd probably say my dad. It's something a bit more closer to home, because it's the way his attitude was towards me doing things. I was never willing to be this kind of going down the same path as everyone else. I tried it, I didn't like it. I wanted to do different things all the time, and I wanted to experiment different things. And he never stopped me from doing that. He was very encouraging of that. In fact, he was trying to steer me away from doing what he does. It was go and find your feet, go and do something you want to do. So that was really, really helpful to me. I can't even think of a third person. Oh, actually, no, I'd probably say the 2 guys that run this brand, Iconic. I've been following them since day one. I really like their business, and they've shared a lot of value, and even exchanged comments back and forth where I've commented on things and sought advice. And that's been really useful for me, being in a similar field, to really take some words of wisdom from people that have been there and done it. Has helped me basically avoid making the same mistakes that they've probably made years ago. I'd probably say those are the 3.
And there again, it's the idea about having community out there. It's important to have your home, your family, giving you encouragement along the way. I find that for myself, a lot of my resources are people who wrote books, who gave really good ideas. I fall back on Napoleon Hill's writings, Bob Proctor's writings, etc. Because really you're stepping out into an area that At my age, I remember when I was about 4 or 5 and they launched a rocket for the first time with an American astronaut, Alan Shepard. I was just so shocked, that they were
Yeah,
launching somebody into space. And who would have ever thought of something called the internet or online digital
yeah,
entrepreneurs back then? It
it's
wasn't
crazy.
even there. People just have to realize that the phone that they probably have their child using to make contact with home, etc., has more computer power than any of those NASA rockets ever had.
It's very true.
Your child is basically walking around with more computer power than any spaceship ever
In their
launched
pocket.
in their
Yeah,
pocket.
in their pocket. Yeah, no,
And
it's
they
correct.
can be a digital entrepreneur from a phone nowadays. It's just
Yeah, yeah,
incredible.
it's really crazy what's possible.
So what would you like
It
to
really is.
debunk here? What's the most common myth about being a digital entrepreneur you'd like to debunk?
I think this whole like glossy lifestyle that actually reeled me in a way, partly part of why I wanted to do it was because I've just always found myself to be a creative person. I wanted to create something and share a bit of value. That to me was a dream. But the other half was this whole lifestyle thing. Obviously money drives a lot of things. Although that shouldn't be the sole focus, it still partially is something that we're all attached to naturally. So yeah, part of that, the whole like glossy lifestyle of being an entrepreneur and how amazing and easy and fun it probably is. When to be fair, it's the complete opposite. Some days I find myself working non-stop. I'll get up at 7, I'll start work at 7:30, and I won't come off till 12 at night. It's not glossy for somebody that's in a relationship with you, because for them they feel like they're living on their own at times. So I think that for me is don't get reeled in by this whole it's this lavish, glossy lifestyle. It can be, and it is for many successful CEOs. That's not to say that you can't have that. I just think especially in the early stages of that path, it is a continuous fight. You got to get up every day. You got to knock some walls down, and you're responsible for what you're bringing to your own table. So yeah, don't get too reeled in by that, and just make sure you're getting into it for the right reasons.
I think if you do whatever you love, you don't really see it as work, number one.
Exactly. And
But
that equally is
yeah,
probably why it's easier for me to be on it till midnight.
yeah.
If I was in my old job, I wouldn't be like I wanted to get out there as soon as the day was over. But because it does feel enjoyable and you do love what you do, like it's hard to step away from it.
I find that for myself, sometimes I'll be working and suddenly I'll realize 6 hours have passed and oh my goodness, no wonder
Yeah.
why my stomach's growling. I need to go get something to eat. But
Yeah.
yeah, I just find it so incredibly enjoyable, this environment. As an entrepreneur, you are
Mm.
100% responsible. And I think that was the biggest shock for myself, was to realize I
Yeah.
had to make every decision and be responsible for them.
Yeah, you got to wear a lot of hats. There's a lot of things you're not going to know how to do that you've got to quickly learn. There's parts, obviously, like learning what your best skills are and honing in on those. Like, don't be afraid, because not everybody is this whole CEO mentality, right? Like, there's a lot of people that have started businesses and hired CEOs so they can focus on different areas of their business. So I think there is a lot of hats you got to wear. You got to learn and adapt fast and just enjoy the process.
Enjoy the process. And it is a process, but enjoy it.
Yeah,
It's a great
enjoy it for sure.
adventure. So
Yeah.
if you could step into my shoes, Bradley, and say, gosh, I wish Gary would have asked me this question, what question would that be?
Oh God, you've asked some good questions, to be fair. I think possibly would be, where do you see yourself maybe in 5 years? I think I
All
don't
right.
like to attach myself to this whole thing of like, because I did that before. I got so stuck on that I wasn't really focusing on the present, right? Like, so when I first started, I was all into this whole like dream board thing and looking at 10 years ahead, 15 years ahead, 20 years ahead. And even what I thought to be 5 years ahead was realistically not 5 years ahead. So it's easy to get attached to that. I think for me, my health, I feel like now I've reached a point where I know what I want to do. I've spent years of doing this and doing that and trying to find my feet, where I was just so focused on doing rather than just sitting around and questioning what to do. Now I feel content with, like, I'm on the right path now. Like, I know this is what I'm meant to be doing. So I feel like now I can realistically say in 5 years, I would like to see myself with the business side of Indigo to be more looking over, like overseeing the projects and having a good team, you know, a solid team that's underneath and really keeping the business churning. So I can spend the other half of my time working on my passion, which is designing art, you know, and still in that entrepreneurial space. I'm really passionate about that, inspiring, sharing some value, even if it's through art. Like I want to really be in on that space. So I think, yeah, 5 years for me, that would be where I see myself. Whereas before it would have been, you know, I want a Tesla and I want a house and I want to go on, you know, there's certain things you're going to get as you tick off, but I think my values have changed, and where I see myself now is more on the how can I share value? How can I make my own dent in the universe rather than the material side of it, you know?
I think that's really interesting because a lot of people get into the digital workspace trying to figure out how to make money. And they don't last long if that's all that they want. It's the people
Definitely
who
not.
say, how do I give value? How do I put something forward in a way that people will see what I'm offering
Yeah,
is real, it's authentic, it's
for sure.
congruent with who I am, what my company stands for, what we're doing.
Yeah,
And they're the brands that go. They're the brands that
yeah,
build up over time. I remember in America back in the 80s when Amazon.com was first on the radio. And they just talked about Amazon.com. You could buy 1,000,000 books, you know, and
yeah.
that was it. That's all they would talk about. And for months and months and months. And I remember asking people, do you know what Amazon.com is about? I don't know. They're on the radio every 5 minutes. What the heck are they talking about? You know, you're getting books. I mean, I have to go on a computer to order these books. I don't have a computer. I can remember those conversations I was having with people. And then in the 90s, when anybody would say, does anybody know where I can buy this book? The whole room would say, Amazon.com.
Yeah.
You know, we'd all been programmed by it all. And what, 40% of all sales last
Yeah.
9 months have been Amazon?
It's
Yeah.
crazy. It's
Yeah.
really crazy.
Yeah. Don't worry. Indigo will be a household name in no time.
I hope so.
Bradley, tell me, what we give everybody is 2 minutes to just share to the world anything they would like to say. Whatever is on your heart. And so that 2 minutes is now yours.
Wow, on a stage. Okay, for me, it would be I'd like to kind of direct a message, not just at young folks that are just, you know, starting out, because there's a lot of late bloomers that come into it at a later date. So the same message can apply. But I just think it's, for me, I'd like to say, you know, make sure, just find something you're really passionate about. Really, you got to enjoy it. You know, if you're going to make this your day to day and you're going to spend so much time invested on it, you got to really enjoy doing it. Things before I've got in for, because it's been this, again, shiny object of like, oh, we can build this thing. And yeah, it was able to do that. And we were able to build something special, but I wasn't passionate about it. I hated doing it. And, you know, it become like a job. So I think find something you're passionate about, really dive into how you can turn that into something that can be this iconic brand, like something that's going to bring money in for you as well as a viable business. But also just enjoy the process, trust the process. Like so many times I've even done it where I'm looking at these others that have built these successful businesses and it's like, why am I not there yet? And you're putting yourself down all the time. Everybody's got a different timeline, right? So, you know, don't feel bad if you're 2-3 years in and things aren't picking up for you yet. Just keep going, like trust the process. Your time will come. And the time's right for you, it will happen. And it usually is when you're probably on the brink of giving up. So just keep going, you know, believe in yourself. You can pretty much achieve whatever you want if you put your mind to it and you put the work in, right? Like not just sitting there and trying to manifest it in. Like you have got to put the work in, but you can achieve it. So yeah, I think is that 2 minutes?
Yep,
I
you've
hope
got
that was
it.
valuable.
You've got it. Well, that's Bradley Morley of Indigo, sharing with you his bits of wisdom he's picked up over the years as a digital online entrepreneur, running his own advertising business delving into helping people with their social media platforms, helping them find where they can best leverage themselves and to scale up their business when it's ready to do so. So it's an amazing world, folks. I'm so grateful that you stopped in to listen to this podcast today. Lots of golden nuggets were dropped along the way here. Thank you, Bradley, for your participation. Ladies and gentlemen, if you like the podcast, please subscribe, forward it on to somebody you know that would also enjoy it. And we will catch you on the next podcast.